tonight. Welcome to tonight's chat. It is lovely to see everyone. Tonight we are having a peer support event. Myself and Flipper, and the rest of the team here. Claire and Richard's there. Mark's here on the panel. Sean, Rich from GB Doc, and Lindsay from the Sheffield Peer Support Group. We'll also be joined by James, Ridgeway, DSN, Eden Educator, and Podden Support Champion. And he'll be talking about peer support later on in his group. And Flipper will be talking about her peer support group as well. So welcome to tonight's chat. Nice to see everyone. So hello. Hi.
Hi. Hi to you too.
Hi, Claire. So what we'll do is we're gonna do a little sort of quick introduction, really, to just get to know everyone briefly, and then we're going to talk about your peer support community, and it might be like sort of 5 minutes each, and you can share a little bit about that. And I've got some prompting questions if you would like, or if not, I'll let you guys just go for it. And then we'll kind of round up just chatting, a bit of a panel chat, if that's okay. But we'll kind of just do a brief introduction. We'll maybe start Flipper, then Sean, then Rich, and then Lindsay. So just a quick introduction is your name, your connection to diabetes, how long have you been living with diabetes, and when did you first connect with peer support? Because I'd be interested to be like, did you get peer support like soon after your diagnosis, or was it many months or years after? It'd be interesting. So let's start with you, Flip.
Okay, and shall we also just run in a quick thing of what your group is as well?
Yeah,
just so that you're all in together. You know, like rather than do a round robin twice.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Flipper. I'm also Philippa. Obviously, I've got type 1. I've had it, I think, about 30 years now. In fact, it must be my diversary soon. I haven't got an exact diversary. So I'm in my diversary period at the moment. So I'm 30 years ago.
Love it.
When did I first connect with peer support? I didn't knowingly speak to another person with type 1 until I had type 1 over 17 years.
Wow.
And that was when I did Daphne. So I'd never spoken to anybody, and it was a revelation realizing that I wasn't the worst person with type 1, because I just couldn't do what I thought was expected, and everybody else managed. I just couldn't be in range the whole time. You know, it was impossible. And within about 10 minutes of meeting them, I realized that everybody else was just like me.
Yeah.
And so it just took such a weight off my shoulders. Following that, I saw those for a little bit, but we were very, very different group of people in age and everything, you know. But when my consultant was trying to get me to get a pump, which I wasn't keen on, I googled, and there happened to be a Pumpers Drinks in London that week. So I went along to that, and I met some people, and I sort of walked in there thinking, I don't want a pump, you know I don't. And I walked out that evening thinking, actually, this could be a really good thing.
Yeah.
So, and they were the group that I carried on sort of seeing, and now I turn up at, you know, opening of an envelope to do with Taiwan. In my area, there wasn't any support. I had, through other groups I'd met, there were 4 of us that used to meet up for meals every so often. And speaking to somebody who works at DUK, I was talking about that because the local group, you know, just statistically was mainly older people with type 2, and saying that there wasn't really much for people with type 1. And they said in a local area, well, an area over from us, they ran just a type 1 meetup as well. It was connected. So I went over and spoke to the person who organised that, and went to their evenings. Then spoke to people that I had locally, or went for a meal, saying, look, if we do this, can we just agree that for a year, at least 2 of us will turn up? So if nobody else turns up,
Yeah.
Two of us will have a nice evening in a pub or a bar. And so we set it up. We let the local clinic know. They were really enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Sort of put out where we could. And we've been going, I think, about nearly 10 years now.
Brilliant.
So we meet up every other month, on the second Tuesday of the month. And we've had we meet in the same pub, but we have had to change venue a couple of times because places have closed down, or
Yeah.
once the pub we met up in had been closed because it had an electrical fault, which we didn't find out till we turned up. So we had to go elsewhere. But yeah, and it's a very simple group. We meet in person.
And is it a London-based group, or for anyone of all types? And
anybody can turn up. It is a type 1 meetup,
right,
but we don't ask you to provide any evidence of that.
Yeah.
So it is adults with type 1. We've had a couple of parents turn up,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very welcome to turn up.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to be repeat visitors.
Yeah, they get what they maybe
and I can't
need.
work out if it's scary what we're talking about to them. Because the dark humour you have when you have conditions, which might be different if you're a parent.
Yeah, they might get what they need from the session they do come, or they might not mean this the wrong way. Is they might just go, actually this group's maybe not for me. I'd rather a parent specific group. You know what I mean? And that's what we're doing tonight, talking about this. You know what I mean? So
we have people from outside the area that do it local to us, because why wouldn't we? And that's what we thought. But we have people travel from the other side of London to come to the group just because they like the group. It's a friendly group.
Do you have
always have people turn up?
Do you have just a few extended questions, really? Do you have like a WhatsApp or a text? How do you sort of communicate with people, or is it just on that every other Tuesday of the second month they know to turn up?
I kept it a very simple model.
Yeah.
Because a bit like us here at Diabetes Chat, Tom. I know that the local hospital are friendly towards us. They will tell people about us, or they don't tell everybody. But if they think somebody needs it, they'll do. I wish they'd tell everybody. But anyway, we've got notice up in their waiting room.
Yeah.
And I don't want anything to happen within the group that could potentially. Well, it's not just because of that relationship, but if it's something that you can't easily monitor. Plus there's the work involved.
Yeah.
So we're not on social media as a group. We don't have a WhatsApp group. Just because, to be honest, it's the time monitoring it. Moderating it. So we have an email group, and I email out if there's anything happening or anybody lets me know anything's happening. I will pass that on if appropriate. And it is an in-person thing. In lockdown, we didn't meet for a while. I can't remember how long. But then in the summer, we had a couple of picnics in the park, or meetups in the park, when you could do that. So because obviously you didn't want to be inside a building, so we did that. But no, it's quite a simple model. Just because I tend to do all the admin and run it, I just don't want to create a problem. There was talk of a WhatsApp. I was a bit like, actually, I don't know who's going to moderate it.
Yeah, you know what? I really like the simplicity of it.
Exactly.
And tonight we'll be hearing different forms about different models and stuff. But I like how very simple it is and basic. Of going back to the old-fashioned emails. That's quite cool. And people know where
it's not that old-fashioned. You're making it sound like I'm sending carrier pigeons.
I bet you were back in the day, Flip.
Via my surf.
But I really like it. I like the model. I like the main thing is connecting with others, isn't it? And I like it's in a nice social situation, just hanging out, chatting, and seeing who comes through that door. And you know what I mean? You might see a familiar face from 6 months ago, a couple of years ago, or it might be someone new. So
yeah, you have some regulars, some just turn up whenever.
yeah.
New people come virtually every time. And like the hospital might mention if somebody's thinking of going onto a pump or a sensor or something, they might mention it. Certainly the consultants will mention the group, and if somebody turns up, there'll probably be somebody there wearing most pumps on offer.
Yeah.
You know, but then other times we're just having a good old chat and whatever. But yeah, very casual, but it is peer to peer, and that's, you know, that's basically what we do. Next person.
I love it. I love it. Great start. If anyone has any questions for Flip, you can message, or at the end we'll have some open questions for anyone else that wants to ask any specific questions. Thank you, Flipper. Right, Mr. Carpenter, over to you, my friend. If you can introduce who you are, your connection to diabetes, how long you've been living with diabetes, and when did you first connect with peer support from when you were diagnosed, and then tell us all about your community that you're part of, please. And there may be some questions that we might throw in.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm Sean, type 1, and have been now for 35 years this year. In fact, 36 years this year, I think. So unlike Flipper, I can't really forget my my diversary, because sadly, due to subsequent events, it's now known as 9/11, and that was the day that I was diagnosed back in 1989, and so you can't really forget every year when my diversary comes around. In terms of peer support, I haven't actually worked out when I first spoke to somebody that was also diabetic, but it's very much like Flippers. I think it'll be a long time.
Yeah.
And actually, the first time I was introduced to peer support was when I had my first pump, because things were a lot more sort of primitive than they are today. And the way they did it at Derby was, when you were first interested in a pump, they used to bring you into somebody else's clinic appointment, and then that person sort of became a buddy.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So, yes, that was my first sort of introduction, and I met a guy, Gary, who's now in our peer support group, and been friends with him ever since. But that was my first introduction to it, and learning off each other when we had an insulin pump, just as they were sort of getting, you know, far more common in use. But that was my first experience of it.
Yeah.
And then I guess I was around on Twitter when the GB doc was starting to really get going. At that time, I think Diabetes UK had a couple of conferences as well for us people with diabetes. So I've been to 2 or 3 meetups in that respect, and Emma, our consultant, who's quite forward thinking, had sort of spoke to us about doing a local group maybe and setting something up. So having been to a few of those meetings and realised just how much you learn from others with type 1 diabetes, and the little life hacks that you pick up and that sort of thing that you can't really get from anybody else. We sort of, 2 of us sat down one day and said, is there any way we can create that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling that we get at these events, but a bit more often, and sort of there all the time for people to dab into? So we set up, just with 2 of us, the Derby Type 1 Diabetes Facebook group. So I'm going back to 2016 now. We set it up.
Yep.
Just basically with 2 of us, some encouragement from Emma and the team at Derby, who were great. They publicised it and helped us out with a launch event. So it had a bit of sort of gravitas from day one, because it was backed by sort of healthcare professionals. We don't have healthcare professionals in the group, but they certainly back it and give out our details. We can tell when there's been a Daphne course or something, because we get a sudden influx of new members to the group. So, and that was just basically Facebook. So it's kind of 24/7, or there seems to be somebody up at all times of night messaging on something or other. We do have meetups as well, not that often. We're mainly a Facebook group. We're there for whatever anybody wants to talk about. And there's, over the years, our numbers have grown quite a lot. I checked before I came on, we're at 989 members now.
Brilliant.
So obviously all of those not active, but
Yeah,
when we set it up, we thought some people will perhaps stay in the background and never contribute, but if they learn something or they get a bit of support from that, great. And others will be on it all the time, chattering about their daily life with diabetes, and that's kind of what we get, I guess. So we're all on there. We all share problems and solutions, and it's worked pretty well. And there's always some sort of topic of conversation going on, and that is very varied.
Absolutely. Especially if you got over 900 people got lots of different experiences. But I really like it, Sean. I like the model that, and it's so different to Flippers so far that, you know, like it's on Facebook, it's online, and it's the way of people communicating in messages or in certain posts. And you know, it's really supportive, and I like as well that you've also got the offline aspect as well. Like me, Rich, and Claire, we've been to a couple which we were honoured to come and chat, really. But yeah, it's really helpful, isn't it? And it was interesting that both themes that are coming out of you and Flipper is the backing of the hospital, the clinic. Like, I think that's really important that the clinic, one, are aware about communities, two, can like support in ways that they can support. Obviously, like you said, they're not physically in the group or things like that, but just promoting it. I think it's so important that if someone comes, they can signpost, isn't it? And they can say, hey, try this group or this national group or this one. But actually, there's one here in our city. Go check that out, isn't it?
And it also, at the time, I mean, 2016 doesn't sound that long ago, but when I was setting it up and trying to publicise it, I'd got opposite ends of the spectrum, because there was Emma at Derby saying, this is great, we really need to do this. But then I was also a member of my GP support group at the time, and the PPG, actually the patient participation group, and I tried to publicise it there, and I was pretty firmly pushed back with, you know, we have grave reservations about social media in this sort of sphere.
Yeah.
So I was given no encouragement at all from one side of healthcare professionals, and completely encouraged by another side. So
yeah,
I think that probably shows how much things have come on since 2016. You know, we're 9 years down the line now, and I don't think those attitudes are quite the same these days.
Absolutely. And if I quickly can touch on it as well, like, was it a couple of years ago they brought out the part of NHS JDRF Diabetes UK, the 6 principles of good peer support for people with type 1 diabetes, and you were part of that, and it just highlights the significance of peer support, the importance of peer support, isn't it?
Yeah, there's, like I said before, you know, there are so many life hacks that it's difficult to know about. You know, if you haven't got the condition, if you haven't lived with the condition and come across some of these problems, and the one thing behind my support group was that, you know, there are quite a lot of things with diabetes where you don't necessarily know where to go. I've said this before, you know, if you have a day like I had at the weekend, you know, you've been 21 minute and 2 the next minute, and you've been through that day, and you come home frazzled at night. Where do you go? You know, who I put it on the Facebook group, as you saw, you know, because I was like, you know, partly for my own benefit and partly just for others to say, look, you know, I think I do pretty well, but I get days like this. And where do you go without that support group? You know, you can't ring your GP at 10 o'clock at night, or your hospital or anything like that. So it's, when it's a 24/7 condition and doctor can't give you a pill to sort it, you know, all they can do is arm you with the knowledge to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Then wherever you can get that knowledge from, you know, it's good, isn't it? You really need to be able to learn from as many different places as you can, really.
and sometimes it's not necessarily you wanting answers, but it's just someone who can offer, I don't know, like that, offer some, like, just understanding
it.
And get
get
it.
it.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah, get it.
yeah.
Like, oh my god, I totally get it. I'm the same, or that was me the other day, or and then you feel a little bit more better that it's normalizing diabetes, isn't it? Is, you know what I mean? And
I think that's the key word, Tom, isn't it? It's normalizing, because otherwise, if you haven't spoken to anybody else, it's kind of like, is it me, isn't it? Is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Is it my fault?
Yeah.
And it's really good that others can say, no, it's not you. It's just the condition we live with, and it happens sometimes. And
that's diabetes, right? Like Flipper said before, like when she
start again tomorrow, and you, hopefully you'll have a better day. So it's that kind of thing for me that's so massive about it. It's just a sharing, really.
100%.
I learned so much from the group myself, Tom. I set it up, but honestly, I benefit from it massively.
100%, yeah. And can I ask then, whose part, like Flipper was talking about, sort of she set the group up and she kind of runs the admin side in the capacity that she does. Like from your side, in terms of a social platform, who sort of runs at it? Like, you don't obviously don't have to name names, but it's a group of people with lived experience, I guess, or how do you sort of... Okay.
Yeah, there's just 3 of us who are admins of the group. Facebook has quite a lot of rules that you may not realise if you're not part of a group or haven't adminned a group. You know, and there are lots of sort of things that you can and can't do. So we set up a set of rules, and people can't join until they've agreed to those rules. We monitor quite closely. It does take quite a lot of time sometimes, you know, but as the group grows, probably the opposite to what you think, probably takes less time, because others who don't have the title administrators kind of do the job with you as well. So it becomes just a big sort of team effort. But the 3 of us get messages, and Facebook, if somebody tries to give away insulin on there, they get put on the naughty step by Facebook without us doing anything. So
Facebook's helping us.
Yeah, Facebook actually helps us out. If there's anything that contravenes their laws, they're very quickly sort of onto you. And we've had people who we've been told we have to approve all their posts for the next 30 days. So,
I like that, Sean. I think it brings safety, reassurance. You know what I mean? It's not just an open group that people can say whatever, do whatever. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, good groups like yourselves and the guys tonight, you know what I mean? It's not, people aren't selling products. We're not about that, you know what I mean? It's supporting people, and if anything like that ever happens, then, you know what I mean, there's ways it deals with it, like you guys, or even Facebook. The admin god to Facebook will step in.
The admin, they will certainly kick in if they don't like something. But I mean, thankfully, what I've found about the diabetes community as a whole is it's really, really supportive. And in those sort of 9 years we've been going now, we've had to do very little really in terms of moderating it. And Partha, when he started the work on the 6 principles of peer support, was basically, you know, I'm working from a fundamental principle that generally people with diabetes want to help each other and not hurt each other. And if we start with that basis and put a few rules around that, you're going to get a really useful add-on to the healthcare pros.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. Great little segment there. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you, grab a cuppa. Thank you so much. All right, Rich from GB Doc tonight is joining us. Thanks, Rich, for coming on. Thanks to Laura for sending you our way.
Yeah, I hope that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So, same question for you, my friend.
So, go on, go through the questions.
Yeah. So, obviously, your connection to diabetes, how long you've been living with diabetes, and how long was it before you connected with peer support from when you were diagnosed? And then, absolutely, please share about GB Doc, similar to what Sean and Flip had done.
Sure. So I was diagnosed in 2016. It was the beginning of September. I remember because I had just got married and come home from my honeymoon.
Yes.
So that kind of sticks in your mind. So yeah, I'm type 1. Just actually last Wednesday started on a hybrid closed loop, which is a bit of a revelation actually.
Yeah.
And it's a real process actually trying to learn to trust it.
Understand it. Yeah.
Where I was constantly on everything all the time, and now I'm just like, just got to wait for it to do its thing. Yeah. So
And when did you? So you diagnosed
When did
9
I-
years ago. When was the first encounter of peer support? What was that?
quite quickly actually, because so I knew somebody. I went out cycling with her husband, and I knew she was type 1 diabetic.
Mhm.
Didn't really ask her about it. She seemed to want to keep it, quite private, so I just left her to it. And then I was just chatting to her one day, and I sort of mentioned that I was type 1, and she goes, "Oh, you should come along to this thing." I mean, this was in the middle of, I'd just been diagnosed, and I was in emotional turmoil really. I was just kind of trying to fit the rest of my life together. How's it going to look from now? And it turns out it's not much different from how it was before. It's just I have this extra thing that I have to take care of. And so it went along, and there was other type 1 diabetics there. I think it was just diabetes, so it was all sorts of people that were there. And there was other people there that had just been diagnosed, and it was just people who understood the turmoil of being diagnosed as an adult, and everything that you go through with that, and obviously the day-to-day stuff with I mean, this was before, well, I mean, it wasn't before CGM, but it was before it was available freely as it is now.
I guess
So
it was it nice as well, like, to have like a group that was something that you were interested in. You were obviously cycling before you were diagnosed, so being able to carry on and do that, but have like a little group that, you know what I mean, you could talk about stuff, or they've got that experience of they've worn that t-shirt, and that might have helped, I guess, in that moment, like being able to talk to them and relate to them.
Yeah, I think I was very new at the time, so I was still learning, about everything, about carb counting, and about even rotating your sites. All of that was really new to me. So being able to chat that through with people who had years of experience of it, who were medical professionals, because there was some DSMs there as well, and even people who were going through it and learning as I was, and listening to the difficulties and everything that they have, that we're having. I think the thing that always strikes me when I meet another type 1 diabetic is there's a spark, there's a moment of connection. Where you kind of recognize each other, and it's like all of a sudden there's a bond that's made in that moment. And I think that is unique. That I don't know if I wouldn't want to say it's unique to people with diabetes, but it's unique to people in certain situations, isn't it? When you meet somebody who's like you, in a world where you don't often see people who are like you. I think that's a really special thing, and I think that connection transcends, socio-economic status and race and gender and all the rest of it, because then it's just you, isn't it? And you're connecting with your type 1 diabetes, and sharing experiences, and even just putting a hand on somebody's shoulder and saying, yeah, I completely get that, I think is really special. That's what peer support is for me. It's that connection that you make. It's that spark of sameness that you get when you meet somebody who has the same condition as you.
Absolutely. Like,
bit deep, isn't
it? No, I think you're dead right, mate. Just someone who really understands it, and I think you instantly, you've got that connection, you've got that bond. It's like you. I don't know, I'm trying to put another example to it. It's like you've known that person forever. Like you can really just like understand them, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Because everyone's journey is so different, but very similar as well, and people live different experiences. So yeah, it's a magic moment when you do bump into people. So what about GB Doc then? Like what is GB Doc like? How did it start? Obviously Sean touched a little bit about it before as well, but what is it? What sort of things does GB Doc do? What's your sort of involvement in the community, in the peer group?
So I sort of came across it probably a couple of years after it formed, I think. So I'm pretty sure it just started on Twitter.
Yeah.
And they had the tweet chats there, and it was a little community. GB Doc itself has been through a couple of transitions, and we're kind of going through one at the moment. We're just reevaluating everything, and what works, what doesn't work. So there probably will be some changes coming, but obviously that meeting is happening tonight. So there will be more on that later. But we've run the tweet chats previously. We've had quizzes, which was a big thing through lockdown. Actually, I think it was a Wednesday night quiz. Which I think a lot of hard work went into that to do it every month. But what else do we do? We've got quite a thriving WhatsApp group, I'd say, actually. That's active every single day. People share their experiences, their struggles and their triumphs. We get the odd unicorn emoji come up when somebody's had a really good day.
I bet everyone
stayed in range.
I bet everyone jumps on that. I bet people jump on that to celebrate with them, don't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's about, right?
Yeah,
like celebrating together.
It's I think it's just one of those times where everything's gone really well for that person, and I think people are just knowing the struggles and what it's like to be on that roller coaster of blood sugars sometimes. When you get a graph that's just within range for the entire day, I think it's just nice to be able to celebrate, like you say, with that person, and just acknowledge that it doesn't happen every day, but when it does, it's really, really nice. So the WhatsApp group's really good, actually. There's a lot of really knowledgeable people on there who are happy to share their knowledge, and there's always somebody's having a bad day. They can share that, and people will be there to support them, to offer advice if they need it. It's just a really nice atmosphere on there, actually. I think, like Sean was saying, we very rarely have anything for the admins to do. We have rules that we have in the community, like we don't allow people to sort of offer insulin, because that being a medication is that needs to go through a medical professional, really. But pump supplies, that sort of thing, that are going to go out of date, that's different, really, isn't it? Because you've either got the pump that it's going to work with, or you haven't. So
but I just think it's great that you obviously, and a lot of people in the UK are very familiar with the hashtag GBDoc, and then it's a way of getting support and writing something, and then there's people that will message back and get like support people, or celebrate them triumphs, or be there to support someone if someone's not having a good day or something like that. But like you say, I like the platform that you've expanded to go off to social media and a different sort of network, like through WhatsApp, but also like there are like meetups, like people within the community become friends and then kind of go meet up, whether it's a group meetup or like led by GB Doc or individual people. It's built friendships really, and that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I first came across it, Diabetic Dad Paul was one of the main characters there, and I think Jules came along a bit later, but
yeah,
you know, they're kind of part of my diabetic experience, if you like. You know, I've shared stuff privately with Paul, and
yeah,
you know, he is a very knowledgeable guy. He's obviously, you know, had diabetes for a long time, but you know, these people are the ones that, although now I don't really speak to them very much now, it's they are part of my journey with diabetes. I've learned so much from them. You know, and relationships come and go, don't they? You get a strong bond with somebody and you're in contact with them every day for the rest of your life. But other people, they kind of they have a season, and you know, but they're still part of that journey, and you still think of them fondly. Paul, I'm still in touch with, because we also have a Facebook group, a men's Facebook group for people with diabetes.
yes,
so that's obviously quite good. It's, you know, it ticks along, that one. I have sort of recurring posts that come up every week, you know, just to get people to check in and share whatever they want to share.
And I like that. I like the check-in. I've just seen how people are, and people can offload what they want to do, or say, oh, this week's been like this, or it's another way to engage in that sort of community. And I know, because I'm part of the group, I'm not much on Facebook, to be honest, but I am part of the group, and I've seen some posts on there that have helped me that are specific to men and stuff like that. So it's another fantastic community setup. At the end of the day, I'm always advocate for communities, more the better, if they're run properly, and you know what I mean, which they all are here, and no one should feel alone, and they should have the support, and just like-minded people, you just get it. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Rich, for sharing a little bit about the cycling group, the men's Facebook group, and GB Doc as well. Really enlightening. We'll come back to you
thank you
shortly. We're gonna pass the baton on to Lindsay, and then we've got James I can see there as well. Lindsay, hello, can you hear me?
I can. I've been listening. Hello.
Hello. I hope that you've enjoyed the chat so far.
Yeah, it's just been brilliant. Warms my heart.
It really does, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
And Linz, like you are such I've known you a couple of years now, and you're such a passionate person who really deeply cares, and so everyone else on the panel tonight, I must say. But every time I see you at your events or the social media stuff and the WhatsApp, you really care, and you just want to support people. So to start again, what's your connection to diabetes? How long have you been living with diabetes? And what was your first moment with peer support? Like, how soon was it from from when you diagnosed? And then for the next sort of 5 minutes, please talk about your peer support communities.
Okay. Okay, so I was diagnosed when I was 2 with type 1, and I've got 2 medals, but I don't want to. Honestly, I just want to be shy about my age. But I'm blooming. So I was diagnosed when I was 2, and I think that was really traumatic. And I was just thinking about it today, and I think I better go back into therapy, because back is a big deal, isn't it? Of being separated from your parents when you're 2. I am smiling, everyone, but I know you all know it's heartfelt.
I bet.
And let me think. So I think growing up in the 70s and so on, and before that, I just feel like there was this massive thing about, are you a good diabetic? And I can remember when I was about 8, saying to my mum, I was in the back of the car, and I remember saying, Mummy, am I going to go blind? And she said, no, Lindsay, you won't, because you're a good diabetic. And I remember thinking, I'm not a good diabetic. And that just felt like a huge weight of responsibility. And so I remember, so I'm thinking about my contact with other people. I remember getting a Balance newsletter before I was 11, and it was all about these people with diabetes who'd walked to the North Pole or climbed Everest or something. And I thought, I'm not like them. I'm never going to do that. I'm clearly not good enough. And then when I was about 11, I started a new school, and I sat next to somebody who also had it. And that was just great. But I don't think I mean, you just didn't have the same kind of wonderful feedback that you would get now from CGMs. And I remember her saying about what she eats, and I remember saying to her, oh, I don't do it like that. We must be doing it in different ways. And feeling a bit unsure, stroke guilty about whatever our family was doing. And I don't think, honestly, I just think there was so little encouragement in those days.
It's so different, isn't it? Like when you hear people like yourself come on, Linz, and talk about how diabetes care was, management, language, which you touched upon, like stigma and them sort of things, and that education, that knowledge, and that relationships with people and peer support. So can you tell us a little bit about, you've got 2 communities that you're part of. What are they? If like, tell us a little bit about it. Are they online communities, in-person communities, a bit of both? And what things do you guys do or have done? And who's it for? Is it all types of diabetes? Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So I should say I'm also the mom of somebody with type 1, and that was big. So when he was 13, and he had this big cry, and I just felt so much for him. And that has been a thing. So we have been able to swap insulin, and like if I didn't have a needle or something, or if I forgot my insulin pen, he's been able to give me a new needle, and I've been able to have an insulin. And I think that's legitimate.
I think we'll allow that. I think that's legitimate in families, helping each other out. Yeah.
Over the years, I've bobbed in and out of the Sheffield Diabetes UK group, but I'd say mostly bobbed out. But in the 80s, I did do a self-help course, self-help leader training with Diabetes UK, and that was really good. There was one person on it who had type 1 who I really related to, and yeah, that was a very good thing. And then I think that was a bit overwhelming though. So some people came to the first meeting that we had, and people were saying things that were just overwhelming, and I couldn't handle them, which was legit, but I think it was a bigger job than I thought. Anyway, so now I'm involved in Sheffield Diabetes UK group, which it's a very peer supported, but it's more centered around the monthly meetings where generally a health professional will come and talk about an aspect of diabetes, but people will come and talk about research, dietitians will come and talk about food. I think the meetings that are the best are probably the ones that are really interactive. And so that group is also involved in the Sheffield Action Hub, which is about we're trying to defeat type 2 across Sheffield and working with people who are at a higher risk of type 2, which tends to be people living in, with deprivation and social injustice, really. So that's all very engrossing. But before I got involved in that, I set up Sheffield Type 1s. And I just can't remember what we did about publicity, but Diana Maynard, who is a really, really sporty, active woman with type 1, she really helped with that. And she knew loads of people. And so that first meeting was just amazing. And people talked about the diagnoses. And somebody said, oh, we needed a Facebook group. So I set up a Facebook group, and we're currently trying to get that going again, because we know that there are people in the Facebook group who we've never met, but also I think most of the groupness is around the WhatsApp group, and we meet on a monthly basis. So we meet at the Showroom Cinema Cafe on a Saturday afternoon, but the following month we're meeting at the Red Deer pub in Sheffield on the first Monday in March, and then the April we're meeting in Deepka for a nice walk, and a big like a slightly more strenuous and a slightly more gentle walk.
Yeah.
So anyone with a connection to type 1 is going to be welcome to the walk.
I think that's what it's all about, and that's what I've got from the vibe of the communities that you're part of and you help run and stuff. Is a very inclusive communities, both of them open to both types of diabetes, all types of diabetes. You have online inclusiveness where people can join when you do the in-person ones, they can join via link. So that's a way that people can join in and not have to go out and be there. And I like the format. You've got like the sort of formally ones where you get the speakers and you learn from healthcare professionals and lots of Q&A and stuff. But then the best ones I find, the in-person ones, like you say, going out for a walk or meeting people. But also like you've got the WhatsApp groups as well. So you've got a bit of a mix, a great balance, and it's really supportive. So really good grand work that you're doing and the community there. So yeah, hopefully we'll try and get to more, me, Rich and Claire, where we can, because when we come we do really like it. So thank you.
I think the type 1 group, because like in the population we're a much smaller group than the people who live with type 2, and but in a way I think like people on insulin, we have experiences that nobody else in the world really has. Touch wood, I hope they don't. And I really like the way that we can get together and have chats without having to explain anything. Like if you're hypo, you'd have somebody asking you, oh, what's going on, what do you need, and you don't have to bother with all that. And dilemmas. Have you this one dilemma? Say you're on the loo and your low alarm goes off. I just think it's a dilemma. I've only recently experienced this, and I think, oh goodness. And recently, Saturday, I was dyeing my eyebrows, and the alarm went off telling me to take the dye off. And the same minute, the blood sugar alarm went off.
Oh wow!
I just thought, shish. But some people who understand this and others won't, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, my browse alarm never goes off when I'm having a hypo. I just can't time it, Lynn. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But it's just things like that. We totally get it. And like you say, which I like your point, is we don't have to overly explain things. We kind of we've got the basis, the dictionary, we know diabetes, and straight off you're into a conversation. You don't have to fully explain it as you might do to someone who doesn't know diabetes or work colleague or someone. So yeah, just people who really get it. So thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm just seeing if James, he's just had a couple of things. I'm not sure if he's able to come on yet. Does anyone, Flipper, Sean, Rich, Lindsay, did anyone want to ask any follow-up questions to anyone else before we go on to the next segment? Was there anything you wanted to share or reflect on from that sort of little chat around the circle?
I had a question for Flipper.
Yeah.
Because I've been looking at doing something locally in sort of Weymouth, Dorchester. I live in Dorset, so South Coast area. Because one thing you said that struck me was you kept the format really simple. Like, how easy is it just to? Because when I think about it, I think I complicate it in my mind.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How did you come to that conclusion? What made you think that was better than kind of doing something a little bit more elaborate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and it's been suggested at times, but I think it was basically time.
Right.
I was busy at work and this, that, and the other, and originally, as I say, I'd been to this other group. I think it's Barnet, where I think the lady's name was, it's either Claire or Carol. Goodness, that's awful. Who sort of set it up, and she was sort of saying, and I agreed with her. Like, just keep it simple, you know, to see what happens. And to start with, it's just you don't know how many people are going to turn up or not turn up. But we had really quite a good turnout the first time. So I think through the clinic, at the time there was even though it was mainly type 2s who attended through DUK, that group, we mentioned it, which I'm not sure how many that generated. But definitely the clinic, they were so enthusiastic. And I'll go to Sean on refer to Sean on this one, because even though we set it up independent to the clinic, when we mentioned it to them, like I mentioned it to my consultant, like, oh no, that's fantastic. They were saying, oh, you can have it here in the centre, we've got this room. And I was very like, no, we're not a hospital group, you know, we would like to be friendly and help, but we are not connected to the hospital. And personally, I think that's right, because it's peer-to-peer. I sort of set it up originally. There were like the 4 of us who we agreed, like I said, over the year 2 of us had turned up, so it didn't matter if nobody else turned up. And then just with the emails, it just seemed the simplest thing, because to set up a Facebook group, or I don't know if 10 years ago or so, if WhatsApp was as popular as it is now. Do you know, you sort of think, I don't think it was as much of a thing, but it could just be as much as a thing for me. And because it's just simple, and it was just like, as I'm doing the admin, you do get emails in, queries, because we advertise the email address for the group. So I respond to those, or will, you know, pass them on to somebody, you know, well, let the person know that maybe that'd be a better source of information, etc. But it's just a simple model sort of worked. And as I say, it's that I don't want to be monitoring a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group, because I really haven't got the time to do it. And even though other people, this sounds really like I'm such a controlling character. Sometimes people say they'll do things and they don't. And because we've got a good reputation, I don't want something spoiling that. If that makes sense. And also keep it simple, and it works. People turn up, people email me. I answered an email yesterday from somebody who'd emailed saying, oh, I've just seen something about your group. When's, are you still running? Are you still active? Because obviously if you see a post, you don't know, and just emailed back and said, so it seems to work and it's not too onerous with that. And yeah, so basically it is, I've just kept it simple and it works.
Yeah.
So, and I think my most important thing is if there's 2 of you, preferably 3, just give somebody a night off, that agree we're going to meet on Thursday the 12th or whatever date you decide on. Even if only 2 of you turn up, you're going to have a nice evening.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so I don't think we're over ambitious for it, and we're still not, but that doesn't mean our group's not successful. We are.
Yeah.
But that's not the point of it. The point of it is people being able to come, chat, meet, find out things, share lived experience, which I think that's another thing. We only share lived experience. And if you are one of the core group, which is still 3 of us rather than 4 more, but 3-4 of us. I know when I'm at the meetup, I spend a lot of my time. It sounds awful. I'm sounding so controlling. I can't think what I say. But you have to keep an ear out for what people are saying.
Yeah.
Because people do turn up and then they'll start talking about something that you think, oh, you're verging on medical advice here.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're here for. And so, do you know, like, you just have to keep that ear out to say, oh, well, I wouldn't say that because we're all different and and oh no, I shouldn't clinic about that. And also, if I know new people are turning up or new people do turn up, I'll make sure that I go and have a chat with them. Do you know what I mean? Or keep an eye on them, that they're not just sat there. I mean, if they're the type of person who sat down and started introducing themselves and chatting away, then fair dues. So I think you do have a sort of responsibility as a sort of host.
Yeah.
As well, but also a guardianship of, I wouldn't want somebody to take some unsolicited advice and harm come to them.
Yeah, no, that's really important. That,
yeah,
because everyone's got advice to give, haven't they?
Yeah, and there's different advice, because I can tell you, if you say something, I can say, oh well, if that happens to me, I do this.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to tell you, oh well, I take 1.5 units and then half an hour later I take another. Do you know what I mean? That's different from saying, oh well, I sort of follow the sick day rules and that seems to work for me. Have you got a copy of the sick day rules?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's different levels. But I would say, for me personally, keeping it simple, it's worked.
Yeah,
and it's meant that we're going, I'm not sure we're 10 years now, or like going on for 11, or if we're 10 years later this year.
But that's what I admire about tonight's chat, learning about different communities, and with yours particularly, Flip, is it's the basics of peer support. Like I really like that. It's not, you know what I mean? We've seen how things have rapidly grown in the last 10 minutes in terms of like social media and stuff like that. But you've kept it to the core, like your identity. That's what's unique about your group, and that's great.
And I think it's not inventing the wheel. There are online groups out there already, and that's sort of like the Derby group's amazing, and there are some fantastic groups there. But it's like, you need another one. Whereas I think in person is so different. I really like it. And I think it's, you do something that you're happy organising. You don't want something that becomes a burden. And it is work. We all know it's work.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's really good. Because in where I live, there's literally nothing now. The one that I referred to earlier just sort of, like, I don't know, it just stopped. So there it is there, and I know I've spoken to my diabetes nurse, and she's really keen, and my GP's like, oh, we can get posters into all of the surgeries and locally, and I just get a little bit overwhelmed with it. I'm great ideas guy, but actually following through and implementing stuff like this, I really struggle. So
do you know other people locally?
Yeah, so I have been in touch with people. but they, yeah, I mean, one lady, she leads a really busy life.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I think once it starts, it'll be good. It's just getting it off the ground. So I might have to just, I think I need to push on it and try and get something off the ground, even if it's just 2 or 3 people meeting in a pub. That's our
Yeah.
first meeting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be great.
Like you say, keep it simple.
And see who turns up. You might be surprised how many do, because if
Yeah.
a clinic's keen on it and you give them enough notice, with like flyers or a poster to put up or something, you might be surprised how many people do turn up. But it's still not it's still great if there are only 2-3 of you. It's still a nice evening out and somebody to share with shared experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic little chat there, guys. Let's see if we can get James onto the panel, if we can, Claire. And then we can have a little chat with James. And hello, James. And then we'll come back to the panel to finish. Hi, James.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, how's everyone else?
Not bad, yeah, not bad on this Monday night. Cold, wet evening, but in great company with everyone here, so all is good.
I've listened to a few little bits quietly while
it's been
the
really
household's
interesting.
getting sound asleep. It is.
And actually, I must credit James, like, because James came to me, probably about 5-6 months ago, and said it'd be really good if we had, when I say we, Diabetes Chat, if we did a chat night where we talk about different forms of peer support, and just see all different styles of communities. So what we've done, James, is we've done a little intro to everyone. So what is your connection to diabetes? How long have you been living with diabetes? And then, interestingly, when did you first connect with peer support from your diagnosis? Like, was it soon after? Was it a while after? And then feel free to share whatever you'd like about your community.
Oh, okay. So my connection is that I live with type 1 diabetes, and I've done since 2012. And I'm also a diabetes specialist nurse in Leicester, and also a diabetes educator for Eden, based at the Leicester Diabetes Centre. And what's the next question?
And how long have you been living with type 1? Did you say that?
12
years.
Oh, it'll be 13 in 2 days' time. I keep.
Wow.
Popular time of year for diversaries, isn't it?
Is yours similar, Flippo?
Yeah, I'm a bit like, I went to the doctor's.
You're similar to me, aren't you?
End of January, but I didn't get the diagnosis till the beginning of March.
Oh, you're a bit more prolonged than I was.
No,
I know our stories are very similar, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I wasn't that prolonged. It's just that my letter got lost.
Oh no. That's not what you want to happen.
Not at all. So,
and then
13 years of type 1. So when did you first connect with peer support? How soon was it from when you were diagnosed? Soon, quick after, or a while?
I would say it was about, how many hours in? I'd quite a nice experience in some ways, I guess, to peer support, but I didn't realise it was peer support until very late down the line. But when I was diagnosed on a Sunday and went into hospital, and there was, the doctor was looking after me, said, "Oh, I'll go and see if I can find my other colleague, because she's also got type 1 diabetes." So about a few hours in, the doctor just sat by my bedside and said, "Oh, just ask me whatever you want, and I'll tell all in an encouraging way." So I guess that was my very first
encounter.
It was lovely in a sense, obviously horrible with the diagnosis, but it was very nice to know someone at that point and know that you know, she was kind of highlighting at the point of, as long as you do everything you need to and the best you can, yeah, you should hopefully be all okay and stuff. And yeah, so that was probably the first bit that I wasn't aware of peer support. But then next time it was when I did structured education. It wasn't Daphne where I was doing it, but it was a similar, like a, I think I did Bertie. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
It was that moment you think, gosh, all sorts of different walks of life and going through similar paths and journeys with the condition itself. That was probably my first moment, and it was so good, so good. Yeah, I'd say that was my moment there.
Brilliant. And tonight we've talked about like each other's groups, and it's been really interesting online and offline and different mediums online. And we also talked about the UK Forum. That's a peer support platform, and Lindsay talked about the Balance magazine, like how that was her sort of first encounter of peer support, and you just talked about your first encounter. It was like a few hours after being diagnosed with a nurse colleague. Let's see what I mean. So it's really fascinating to hear there's honestly different ways of peer support. So tell us, James, about the Podding peer support group, what it is, how did it start, sort of what do you do, like, and do you do online things, in person? I know the answers, but please tell us all. Go on, go for it.
So Podding peer support has been 2 years as of yesterday, actually, that it's been going for, and it's mainly to connect people who are using or interested in the Omnipod, which does sound limited for some, but we don't exclude, you know, if people want to come along to the group and learn what it's like living with it, then they can do, absolutely. And it's not just for the person themselves. We've got some kind of partners in there, and some mums in there of kids and things. So there's no necessary boundaries to things. And it all started from my diabetes lead, my service lead, and he wanted a conversation with me, and he says, "Oh, you're using Omnipod, and do you fancy setting up a group as more people using it?" And people have been asking about what extra support there is beyond clinical support. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. And then we had the first meetup in person, where we've kept sort of monthly meetups going, where they're sometimes online, sometimes they're face-to-face at the Diabetes Centre, and more often than not now they're sort of social meetups. In fact, they've got one happening this Thursday, which is always nice. And and we always talk about a certain hot topic. And when we had the first one, it was more like I guess it was a bit like a PPI, really, where you had people who connected and wanted to know how the group would work for them. And and then it was at that point that they sort of mentioned about I describe it as connecting at times of disconnection. So they mentioned about use of social media, and it was highlighted around a WhatsApp group would be probably a good way to start off with. And as time's gone on, that's become the most impactful thing, I would say. So with a WhatsApp group, we've got now, I think, about 80 people part of it, all based in Leicestershire and Rutland, all different sort of stages of using the technology or interested in it, or in all sorts of different ages of living with type 1 diabetes, including a lady who was diagnosed, I think, late 60s or early 70s with type 1, and then 3 years later she's using hybrid closed loop. She's quite inspirational. And well, I was just having I did a little bit of export of the chat and working out with a bit of AI how many proximate messages, and there's yeah, it came to over 20,000 messages.
Wow.
And I realised because I think I heard Flipper mention about it earlier around extra support, and I fully agree with, you know, when you lead in a group, having that extra support with you is key. So I was kind of leading it for the first year as me, but then eventually that becomes quite hard, especially when time goes on.
Yeah.
And especially as it gets bigger and bigger. So now I've got 3 other people that sort of co-lead it, mainly in terms of the WhatsApp side of things. Exactly what Flipper mentioned about that misinformation or saying you should do this. I would say to my group, you know, if you see in that, just flag it and say no specific dose advice or anything like that. Tagging in like your pump sec day rules and key things that the pump team would say is those key messages, which are safe messages but not prescriptive advice. They tend to be the only things that we'd step in for. And it's useful, certainly from our side. Well, not every group, but our side found having some medical experience within it. Obviously, me in that aspect to red flag some situations if someone's having a bit of a moment where they need that just check-in support, or, you know, saying, oh, is this right? And a couple of times where they consented for me to just ping the pump team a message and say, well, by the way, this person is struggling with this, and next moment they're then contacting them. And then other situations like a person who's needing to be seen by the antenatal team, and, you know, little things like that, really. And well, not little, but yeah, certainly the WhatsApp's been a big thing. That's kind of the concept of it, really. And it's nice that it sustained itself, really. I wasn't sure how it would go, but certainly having people lead it, and not just people who lead it, but also people within the group who have good voices within it, not in terms of I'm the loudest person, but also people that, I don't know, are quite vocal in that, you know, regularly use it and things, and keep the group motivated and going, and lots of conversations. It definitely helps. But yeah, that's about it with the group.
Absolutely incredible, mate, honestly. And congratulations on your 2nd birthday for a few days ago. It's tremendous, and tonight we've heard what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different communities sharing about peer support in different forms, and it's been really, really insightful. Thank you to everyone that's come on. I'm just having a look at the time. It's 1:45. We did have a couple of extra questions, maybe as a discussion, but I just want to appreciate if anyone wants to carry on a little bit more, or you're more than welcome to jump off the guys on the panel if you need to jump off. But I just wanted to ask, see what you think. Thumbs up. Cool. But has anyone got any reflections or any questions that they wanted to ask each other from hearing about each other's peer groups, or we can come to some that we've got. Did anyone have any reflections about each other's, or about peer support in general?
I think the one reflection I would have, Tom, is that it's kind of like the more the merrier, isn't it? Why should we limit it? We can be all these groups, virtual groups, in live groups. Everybody is different when it comes to peer support and what they would consider to be useful as peer support. So I think it's brilliant that there's so many different types. The more there are, the more audience we can reach, isn't it?
100%. You know, it comes in all shapes and sizes, isn't it? It doesn't matter how the group is. It's at the end of the day, it's supporting someone. And I know you guys have touched upon it a few times. Philippa, talking to Richard about, you know what I mean, if you get 1 or 2 people, that's fantastic. That's what it's about. peer, isn't it? Peer support. It's one person talk to another, and that could lead on to other people. So yeah, 100%. Any other reflections, guys, or comments?
I think just from what Sean's saying, I agree. I think the more the merrier. And I think it's that just to people who you're not going to please everybody.
No.
With what you do. And I think it's within yourself knowing what you want to do and what you're prepared to do.
Yeah.
Because you will get queries from people like, oh, it'd be really good if you did that. And very often, and some of the ideas are really good ideas, but I know I haven't got the time for that. So I quite often go back to people and will say, well, that sounds fantastic. If you want to organise that, let
Absolutely.
me know.
Yeah.
I'll pass on the details.
Yeah.
And it's not the feeling that you have to do everything. And it's amazing how often these fantastic ideas never get off the ground. But I think that's the point of just because somebody suggests something to you, don't feel obliged to do it.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to please everybody. You know, people. Not that I've had. It's more people suggesting extra things you could do. But I don't feel. But then there are other ideas that are really good ideas. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's where. I guess that was one of the questions really, is that are there any challenges or limitations to being part of or running peer support communities? And I think you've kind of answered that question really in some way. Like, but I'm trying to put it into context here. When you look at the word peer support community, so it's peers, like we've all got a common interest here in diabetes, but it's a community. So it's people working together, and it's not relying on just one person or whatever. And in that instance, Flip, if someone's come over to suggest an idea and it's, oh, could you do this or do that? Yeah, it might sound a great idea, but it doesn't necessarily mean you or the leading people of that group would have to do it. Do you know what I mean? We can do it together. Yeah. We can do it together. That's what makes it special, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just sort of saying sometimes I think, I mean, I don't think you have to be too restrictive.
No.
Sort of rules on who, what, where. No. But I think most of us would know what we believe the groups are.
Yeah.
And one of my examples is during lockdown, people were saying, oh, why don't we have Zoom meetings? You know, that would be good, and this, that, and the other. And I was a bit like, oh, that sounds great. And so I said to the people who suggested, well, if you want to set it up, brilliant. You know, I'll send out the links and whatever. Just let me know and do it. Oh, won't you do it? And I'm like, well, actually,
yeah,
not at the moment, thank you. You know, I'm probably turn up. And it's not that their idea was a bad idea, but it was just at that time with what was going on with me and work and stuff like that.
For sure, yeah.
You know, you don't want to do it. So I think that's one of mine. It's not. One of my things which I know James knows that I'm a bit fanatical about just because of roles I've had before, is just be conscious of GDPR rules and things like that and health and safety.
Yeah.
I know our group was independent for many years, and a couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years now, we became DUK contacted us, and we've become a Diabetes UK community group, which just means that they provide some training and things that you have to do, but it means they'll advertise it on their website.
Okay, yeah.
But also, it's if you are speaking to clinicians and people who maybe are a bit skeptical about online things or in-person meets, you've got the backing of, well, we're a Diabetes UK group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? I'm not saying we've done anything different, or I've not particularly done anything different since doing that, but others don't know that.
Yeah. And that's another point, isn't it? If people go on the DUK website, they can search as the postcode finder to find local or groups within their area. in person.
But that's different. Not, or I don't believe, or does anybody know who's one of those groups? Are all those DUK community groups, or are they just groups that happen?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't know if Sean would know that particular answer. James, go for it.
Yeah, ours is kind of affiliated by DUK, so you can have some that are sort of registered with DUK, but then you can have some that are separate. So ours is so each group, can do that as well. And I wanted to also mention that, like, on the reflection side of things, I, as a clinician, I think there's definitely an onerous almost on clinical teams to at least know of local groups, or even groups like, like social channels like these that are accessible to people who live with the condition. So then when you're in a clinic and you think, someone may ask the question, or at the end where someone may be thinking, struggling, and but I just want to talk to someone. You think, well, actually, there's this local group, if there is one, or there's this one on here. And I think as clinicians, it's good to know, or a service have something, so whether it's even in the waiting area, having some flyers or something like that, much more practical, because it's, as we all know, it's hard to do it, isn't it? Many of us do it voluntarily, and that energy's hard enough to sustain it. So I think there's an area for continual work, because I know some people have areas where there's nothing near them for many miles, and they can't connect with anyone. So I do think that's an area for the future. And like, I know Sean's there, so obviously Derby set up the Derby group itself, which has got many people, and that's been fantastic peer support group network. So yeah, I think that's something that's needed. And if there's any areas that aren't doing it, they should try to find out what is the nearest thing, and if there's nothing set up, can they look at ways of doing it?
And I think that's something I always think with clinics, particularly depending on how your clinic is situated. I suppose even harder now that people aren't in-person appointments, but it's also providing opportunities for people to meet. So could it be that, and James is going to say, not really practical, and well, I'm not saying you are, that's making you sound very negative, James, and I know you're not. But do like providing opportunities for people to meet? Because if there's nothing local, well, can you run an education evening and invite everybody? Not everybody's going to turn up, but at least those who do turn up might be the people who are looking for something, and then they'll meet others. And once you've met somebody else,
the domino effect,
know what I mean?
isn't
There's
it?
the possibility of setting up peer support.
Yeah.
But if you're one person on your own, it's like, well, how do I set it up? But also, how do I get in touch with people?
I think there's definitely the possibility for it. If there's a will, there's a way, obviously. I think Sean might have more knowledge on this, but I think Derby, for example, around the use of hybrid closed loop, for example, they had people invited, those that met criteria and were going to go for it. They had, I think, the reps come in for a certain session, and they got users to then talk to each other and speak to the reps and stuff. So that was a way of, I don't know, not saying killing two birds with one stone, but making the best use of time whilst having that element of peer support. I don't know if Sean knows of that side of things, but
yeah, I know that did happen, James. Yeah, we in Derby, they've done it for a long time now. Just had pump evenings where the reps come in. Yeah, right. Certainly at the last couple, they've invited us along as well, so that we've got the reps and the users, but so you can hear both sides, can't you? And I think that's a great use of peer support. That is.
Yeah, I think didn't King's in London, didn't they do an event in the evening or something with
did. Yeah,
and created a Facebook group from it. So I think
that's where peer support really comes in, I think, because that was peer support helping peer support. Because
Yeah.
I was with Kings helping them set it up purely based on our experiences as well. So I think we can help grow it and get more groups.
Yeah, I fully agree. I don't know how there's a way of pushing it forward, or I don't know the word mandating it or anything, but you know what I mean? Like almost like question it whether a hospital services, do you have or do you know of local peer support groups? Like, for example, in the hybrid closed loop guidance by Diabetes Technology UK and APCD, they state in the guidance that if you're supporting people with type 1 diabetes, then you should have a peer support group that you're affiliated with or you're setting up. Yeah. And I know we're very much talking about type 1 diabetes here, but when we're, like where I am based, we do part of what we call the Tea Today Fund, where areas in the country utilise funds for supporting young adults under the age of 40 with type 2 diabetes. Part of ours was to, and still doing, provide specialist support in there, and we've got some research funds which look at community hubs of peer support for people that are young adults with type 2 diabetes. So I think it's not just specifically type 1 related, but broader, much broader, even monogenic forms as well, and all sorts of different forms.
I think the Kings Group is a brilliant example of where the healthcare professionals got involved at day one and helped launch it. And on their first launch evening, there were 120 people turn up on the first launch evening. And they had tried to line up speakers and whatever. And they also sort of, after the event, we didn't really need speakers because everybody was just there talking to each other.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've all been talking about, isn't it, tonight? That feeling when you get out there and there's other people that have the same condition. And that was them off to an absolute flyer, just with a bit of healthcare in professional involvement. And immediately their group was off to a flyer.
It's a bit like yours, isn't it, Tom? Because you had an idea, didn't you, for this group? You just wanted to talk about Little Connect. Is that's where this all started, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just came out like I was comfortable in accepting the diabetes after such a long period of time, and I felt I just wanted to talk. And my first sort of peer support connection was singing like the GB Doc hashtags, and then my other form of peer support was our good friend Camille Nerdiabetic. I was watching his videos on YouTube, and I class that as peer support. Like you're watching a peer, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation. You could be just watching them, like share their story or experience or whatever. And then when I felt ready to like reach out, then I just thought, hey, I'll set one of these up, and 3 years on, we're here. So yeah, big encourager of people to find their communities online, offline. Also wanted to pay tribute as well, and I hope I don't miss any groups out. I'm sure I will, but there's so many fantastic groups online. You've got, and they in person as well, like DDoC, which is a massive global peer support community. You've got Menopause Mivers, you've got Thriver BTs, TAD talking about diabetes, which is a UK community that they host yearly events and hear from peers sharing their story. Chris Bright from the diabetes football community, him and John and the team there. Together Type 1 program, part of DUK and the Steve Morgan Foundation. You know what I mean? There's so many things. And I think we should create a new hashtag, Find Your Tribe. Absolutely. It comes in so many shapes and forms, and we've talked about it tonight. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone. It's been an honor tonight. I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And I just like chatting to people who just really get it and understand and that's what peer support is to me. But maybe just to finish, is we probably should have started in the night with this, and I'm sure we've touched upon it. But as an end reflection, let's start with Claire, and then we'll go around. What is your definition of peer support? Because it's so unique to everyone. Like, and if you don't want to share, guys, you're more than welcome not to. But start with you, Claire. What's your definition of peer support?
It's therapy.
Brilliant. Would anyone else like to share? I won't put people on spot. Just go for it.
I think mine is, it's a phrase that somebody used. It might have been Flipper earlier on. It's just shared experiences.
Yeah.
Mm. I think
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go on, Flip. Go on, Flip.
No, mine is a gathering of people who have a common life experience
Yeah.
to share.
Yeah, shared knowledge, I think, for me. Back in 2018, diabetes burnout sucked, and I reached out. My then DSN put me through to the Derby Facebook Type 1 group, and I think it's 2018 I met Sean and Jeremy, a lot of fellow diabetics at a pub near junction 28, the M1, and they were looking at the watches and they could see the blood sugars. I was like, well, how have you managed that? Because obviously you're out of the loop for a long time. And that was a powerful moment. And I've never kind of looked back. That peer support has carried me for the last 5 or 6 years into a much better place. So all credit to everyone that's involved with support, peer support. Like Sean said, you and I spoke about, when you went to clinic in the 90s or whatever, 2000s, you'd sit in the waiting room, you wouldn't speak to a soul. You'd see many of the type 1 diabetics, type 2 diabetics in clinic, and you wouldn't dare speak to them. I don't know. You wait for your moment to go and see your consultant, you have your blood pressure checked, you wait and all the rest of it. You see a consultant, and then you walk out with a little bit of knowledge, from your consultant. You have your stats and stuff, but I think sharing a problem on peer support is helping you deal with the rough roads. It's a tough condition, chronic illness, and it's great to have fellow diabetics alongside you to get that support and that shoulder to lean on, kind of thing. I think it's massive. It's been great this evening.
Thanks, Rich, mate. Thank you. A problem. What do you always say? A problem halved is a problem shared.
Problem shared is a problem. Shared is a problem.
Oh, mate, I've been up since 5:30. I can't think.
Yeah.
But you're dead right.
I know what that's like, matey. Yeah.
Like, honestly, I'm not just saying
We're
this.
in it.
We're in it together.
Aren't we? Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not just saying this because we're on and cringy or whatever, but like, I wouldn't be where I am now without peer support. And I wish I had it back when I was diagnosed. Like Flip, you talked about your first encounter. It was like 17 years after. Like Daphne, Sean was alluding to a couple of decades too, and you know what I mean. I think it should be part of the toolkit. We talked at the start tonight about having psychological support. You know what I mean? I think it should be part of the toolkit. When you diagnose, you have your technology, you have you know what I mean, all the different annual care that you need from the clinicians, and you have education and you have peer support. And that should be the bread and butter of when you diagnose and going forward in peds, young adults and to adults. Everyone should have it. Personally, we're in it together. And for me, my definition is togetherness, people who really get it. And my closest friends, you're all really good friends, but my closest friends are are people who live with diabetes now. People who really get it. I can message at any time and talk, like ask them a question or just rant and moan or something. I don't know, but we then have other enjoyments in life, and that's what it's about. But peer support for me is helping mental health.
Yeah, completely. I love it when if somebody says, "Oh, I've just had a rant there about the diabetes," and I think, "Oh God, we're totally with you. We know what you mean."
100%. You know, we've worn that T-shirt, haven't we? We really, really get it.
Yeah.
100%. What about you, James? Definition of peer support for you?
Oh, I could search the NHS for their definition, but
No,
I
what
really
yours?
liked what one of the previous people that were part of the group, well, still are part of peer support, but they said it's like being before peer support. It was like they're in a boat and having one paddle and going around in circles, and then being part of peer support, like having someone, more than one person in the boat, and then each one grabbing a paddle, and instead of going around in circles, they could go in a similar direction. So that sharing experience, I guess.
That's a fabulous analogy. I love that.
I know, it's good, isn't it? I keep
Brilliant.
using it.
That is.
Yeah, really love that. I'm really visioning that. Yeah, togetherness, 100%. Like it. Kez, what's your definition of peer support?
I don't really have a definition, but as I said, I've just posted a comment to say that, like, there was nothing else when I was diagnosed, because we hit COVID. So without it, I'd have been stuffed royally.
Yeah.
Because all of my information came from peer support.
Yeah.
100%.
There was literally nothing. Like, there were no appointments. There was nothing. No education. Nothing.
So it was a vital need for you. You needed it.
Absolutely.
And I think over the COVID periods, it was extremely difficult, wasn't it? In general, but in terms of diabetes, like people needed comfort, hearing from people, or like sending a WhatsApp message or getting an email from Flipper, or seeing the notification on the Derby Facebook group, or you know what I mean, seeing things on social media, cares from the DSN forum or people like-minded in the community, or seeing the weekly quizzes of GB Doc or the tweet charts, or like just having people who just get how tough it is, and people who've got your back in all times, right?
I think COVID made everybody realise, whether they've got a condition or not, that you take away your support circle, life is much more difficult, isn't it? As we were all in our bubbles, and so add a condition into that. Yeah, COVID. Without peer support, I imagine it was a pretty horrid time for those who were newly diagnosed about that time.
Yeah. No, tough times for lots of reasons.
But we come out of it stronger together, and you know what I mean. We shouldn't be alone in this, and people can reach out. Hey, we're not. Yeah, we're not.
And we're not now. We're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my sort of like today, as an event today, and seeing people newly diagnosed, young people and families, and is amazing that they're getting like peer support so soon after being diagnosed, a couple of months. is tremendous, but also peer support for them parents and caregivers is equally, if not important, especially for young people, because the parents are potentially the ones who are doing a lot of the management, you know, especially with young children. So yeah, I hope that you guys have really found tonight's chat really good, helpful maybe in some ways, yeah, I hope we can hopefully do another one again in the future and connect up with further groups as well as you guys. But honestly, thank you, Flipper and Shaw and James, Richard. I've seen Laura as well from GB Doc here today. Lindsay. Yeah. So thank you so much. And also Mark, I must, before we finish, Mark, you're part of the Midlands group. My sincere apologies, my friend. You know what I mean?
I didn't know whether Claire was representing us or not, but yeah, there is the West Midlands. It calls itself Midlands T1D Club, but it's really just a WhatsApp group which occasionally meets up. Really.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? You were going to say something? Sorry. Yeah. It's just really that.
I just think it's another way that people can connect. They can send messages at all times, and they've just got someone who's there if they need it. You know what I mean? Or like just be sharing, asking questions, pointing people into direct. Like if they do ask any sort of clinical thing, then there's someone within the group who can bring it back and say, look, go speak to your team. You know, that's, and just to help them in their moments, or like you said, them social elements, going out in social places like Flipper said, and whether it's the pub or social environments, like going for a picnic or wherever. So yeah,
I think it's important to say for anybody else who's listening, there is it was mentioned earlier, DUK website have a search for there, so you can find if there is a local group. I'm not sure if every group in the country is there, but a lot of them are. And I'd always say if there is one, give them a go. Do you know what I mean? The worst that happens is, say, like if somebody turned up to our group and you turn up and it's not your type of thing, which it may not be, you have one drink and then you make an excuse and leave. If it's an online group, listen for a while, and if it's not your type of thing, fair enough, just look for something else. There's so many different types out there. There's something there for everyone, but not everything is for everyone.
Great way to finish. Love that.
Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. What a fantastic evening. Oh, and also you've got things like Breakthrough T1D. Obviously they do Discovery Day events, don't they? That's a form of peer support, connecting with people. I don't know if the UK still run their events. I'm not too sure. The national ones, but yeah,
I've not seen anything for a long time from DUK.
No.
I don't know if anybody else has.
A Breakthrough T1D doing any this year? Because it only seems to be the online at the moment.
I think they've got some planned later in the year, but I think from a couple of years ago, or probably longer than that now, rather than they used to have more smaller events, I think they have one per nation per year. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah.
So I think there's, and if you look on the website, they've got like TBA on the dates and things, but there will be some in-person events, but they haven't got the dates yet. I don't know why.
Scotland is the end of March. I think that's on their website, and I do know that they will be going to Ireland and England and Scotland throughout the year, but dates and things haven't been confirmed, and I'll let them announce that when they get to it. But March confirmed for Scotland. But I don't know anymore. I don't know any dates or anything. Check them out as well. If you haven't, if anyone's listening back or anyone listening here who hasn't.
I think it's meeting up with people, isn't it? Because even though sometimes these events aren't technically a peer support event, but do you know what I mean? That's a secondary function for them. But it is meeting somebody, and if it's an in-person one, you're more likely to meet somebody that's in your region.
Yeah.
And sort of get to know people.
Absolutely. I think it's walking. It's walking through that door, I reckon, and then knowing just someone in that room who's going through similar things. So even if you don't even speak to them, just being in that same room kind of normalizes it, and you hear people's CGMs or alarms going off or whatever, or just being in that room, isn't it? Social elements. So lots that people can go to. So maybe to finish, the guys on the panel, and we will finish and then go open forum before tonight, is what advice would you give to someone who is trying to find a community, peer support community, or what would you say? I think you kind of answered a little bit before, Flipper, but anything else to add?
I think sometimes, and I know I don't mean to sound negative when I say this, but I am being negative, is it's a bit of a buyer beware situation. If a group doesn't feel right, leave it. I know some of the online groups, people have said to me, oh, join this group, it's really, really good. And I've there, and a couple of things have been said, or a certain person, might be doing things that you don't agree with. I'd say just walk away. There are other groups out there. Have a sort of fish around and find what you need and what you want.
Exactly, like James said before, that hashtag find your tribe. Essentially, find what you're comfortable with, and that is okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with us from Diabetes Chat point of view, is people can dip in and out as they need and like, and if it's for them, great. If it's not, it doesn't matter. My biggest thing is if they want peer support, and from my point with Diabetes Chat, if it's not the format they need or want, that's fine. But if they do get what they do want and need, that makes my day. That's what it's about, is finding something that's right for them. And if they join for a little bit and got what they need, then that's okay. It's absolutely okay.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things, you've got to try a few groups, and not one size will fit all, if you see what I mean. Some people will find one group brilliant, others will find another group brilliant. I mean, the one group we haven't mentioned, which is fairly new, is the We Are T1D guys who do the podcast. That is definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea, because it's a bit more laddish, and they have a few interesting turns of phrase, but they have a group and they do things like fitness. They've split it up into tech and various other things. And I know Rich, who Sunny Cyclist Rich, who seems to have gone, and I are part of their WhatsApp. Oh, somebody's getting a few alarms. But they're also there as well.
Yeah, I think it's finding your tribe, and it's finding a safe, inclusive community, which there are lots. And finding what's right, isn't it? For you or the person. Yeah, absolutely. James or Sean, any thoughts from you, or Rich, Claire, any final thoughts for you and advice for someone trying to find the right community for them? Or
I don't think I've got anything new, really, Tom. I think that's it. It's support at the end of the day. So if you don't find it supportive, then, as people have said, it's not for you, is it? And it is try as many as you can, and hopefully you'll find one.
Yeah.
I was going to say it could be something as simple as a Google search. So I've just done it then, like diabetes support groups. So obviously you could do, it comes up straight away with Diabetes UK, different groups and stuff, you know, the search engine. And then I put online, and then it's got examples of docs where it leads to here, and GB doc, for example. So it could be just as simple as doing Google search straight away as a way of finding a way in a way, but not always as easy as just doing a Google search, but it's a way.
Definitely. Well, what a fantastic night, guys. We'll pause it there on the guest speaker chat, the podcast element. So thanks to everyone that's joined us tonight. Really, really fascinating. Lots of different communities. Please go check out them if you want to learn more, and join us again. Hopefully in the future we'll do another session on this very important topic.